dialogue about how innovations in genomics and research technology can impact health disparities. In addition to the National Human Genome Research Institute, the series is co-sponsored by the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute, the National Institute of Minority Health and Health Disparities, the National Institute of Diabetes, Digestive, and Kidney Disease, and the Office of Minority Health at the FDA. And I want to thank Dr. Perez Dable, the director of NIMHD, who's here in the audience today. Speakers have been chosen by these 5 institutes and centers to present their research on the ability of genomics to improve the health of all populations. The speakers in this series approach this problem from different areas of research, including basic science, population, genomics, and translational and clinical research. To introduce our speaker today, I'd like to invite my colleague, Dr. Charles Ratimi, who's the chief of and senior investigator of the NHGRI Metabolic, Cardiovascular, and Inflammatory Disease Genomics Branch and director of the Center for Research on Genomics and Global Health. Thank you, Charles.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Vince. Again, it's a distinct pleasure here to introduce our speaker. I hope I'm advancing this correctly. Okay. Richard Cooper, who is my mentor, and I've known Richard for many, many, many years, I think since 1992 or so. He was the person who trained me to this point, in terms of whatever I do today at the NIH. So Richard, indeed, his work has provided remarkable insight into cardiovascular diseases in different human populations, especially the African diaspora population. I remember one evening when I was doing my postdoctoral work at Loma Linda, I saw an ad from Richard, again, basically in advertising for like an assistant professor position, and I saw this ad. After I read it, I told myself this was written for me, and I remember calling Richard, to say that you must have had me in mind when you were writing this ad for a position. The rest is history. I went to Richard for the interview, and I got the job as an assistant professor then, and my training really, in a sense, started from that point of view. So I'm sure you probably see some of this when Richard gives a talk, when he starts his talk. What his work has really done for me in terms of my own training is to enable me to have a more critical way of thinking about health disparity in a way that you really have to bring to bear the society within which you are doing this study and how the environment, tracks some of these things. So the very first project I worked on with Richard was this, publication in 1997 looking at the African diaspora populations. And that was my baptism in a terms of doing population work. And believe me, I learned a lot from working with Richard, going to different African villages and the Caribbean to do this work. He demonstrated clearly the importance of environmental factors. So that, to me, is really part of the wonderful training that I received. Also, working with Richard, I remember we do talk, like in the evening in the office, and the following morning, Richard comes back. He has these 2 or 3 pages of what we talked about, and I'm always scratching my head. How can you write this quickly? So that was some of the really interesting things that I picked up, again, from Richard. And his studies really has shed light into understanding hypertension, especially in African Americans. Because initially when I started working with Richard, you hear all these things. People describe hypertension in African Americans as if it's some kind of different physiological problem. That it's almost not, other human beings don't have the same pains. And by doing work in different African populations and in global populations, he was able to put the African American experience in perspective, and that has stuck with me over the years. one of the things that we shed light on, is really this issue of the slavery hypothesis. I remember this publication in Scientific America, which with Rick Wood, who has now passed away, a good friend of Richard and myself, where there was these people thinking about, the slavery and the survival of African American during the slave trade more have selected upon some kind of variance that is putting African American at increased risk for blood pressure. I remember Richard, saying, Charles, we have to test this out, and we collected these samples and did a genotyping for angiotensinogen. And what it turns out is that although the frequency is higher in African, but it really